Alright, hello everybody. Welcome to our last lesson in our unit here on the age of exploration and isolation. So today we're going to take a look at growing exchange and economy. So we're going to take a look at how trade and things like that in the economies around the world are going to grow and expand because of exploration and things like that. So our objectives and standards: to analyze the exchanges that occurred between different groups of people, and to recognize the impact of growing economies and systems of commerce. And take a moment there to look over the standards, please. And our desired result for you to think about as we go through here: how did trade and commerce grow around the world? So exchanges around the world. Due to European voyages in the 1500s and the 1600s, major changes took place around the world. So plants and animals were brought back to Europe by Columbus in 1493, and we'll talk about some of those things here on the next slide. When he later returned to the New World again, he brought animals and plants from Europe to the Americas that Native Americans and other groups had never seen either. So this is going to start a global exchange that's going to impact the world, and we know it today as what is called as the Columbian Exchange. So let's take a look at the food and animal exchanges specifically here. So from the old world to the new world, we have a couple of things. So from Europe to the Americas, we have things such as wheat, grapes, bananas, cattle, pigs, goats, chickens, horses, and donkeys. So all these things from Europe and even Africa and Asia are going to travel to the New World. Now, from the New World to the Old World, we have a couple of things as well. So from the Americas and the Caribbean and places like that, we have potatoes, tomatoes, pumpkins, corn, and peppers. So this explosion of food around the world is actually going to help contribute to a population growth around the world as well. So spreading people and ideas. Food and animals were not the only things exchanged globally. Millions of people are going to migrate around the world, people from Europe to the Americas, and it also included the forced movement, unfortunately, of Africans to the Americas and elsewhere as slaves. Now, while some areas are going to grow, Native American populations are going to shrink, unfortunately, due to diseases brought by Europeans, which we've already kind of talked about. But we'll also see ideas and language begin to spread around the world as well. One thing is the beliefs that were brought by Europeans and Africans to the Americas, and even inventions and ideas from distant lands were adapted by Europeans. And we have new words that appear that we recognize today, but these were new words from around the world. For example, pajama was from India, and then we have hammock and also canoe was used in the Americas. So again, we begin to see some different language exchanges as well. So a revolution in commerce. Opening direct links with Asia, Africa, and the Americas had widespread economic impact on Europeans, and it begins a period of economic growth known as the Commercial Revolution. So we begin to see modern banking, capitalism, and investing begin, but we also begin to see the rise of prices in Europe, in the 1500s. Now, there's also a large amount of money in circulation, which will cause a problem known as inflation. There will also be large amounts of gold and silver from the Americas flowing into Europe, so the rise in prices will also lead to a rise in the output of goods, and money will be kept in banks and typically reinvest in the economy. So we're just kind of circulating this money throughout Europe and the world. So the rise of a free enterprise system. Overseas empires and growing trade also spurred European capitalism. Now, capitalism is the investment of money for a profit. It's also known as a free enterprise system. What that means is most businesses are privately owned, and economic decisions are made between buyers and sellers depending on supply and demand, okay? So entrepreneurs are going to take risk by managing and investing in businesses, and they're going to provide the jobs, the supplies, the transportation, and the cost of production to help these businesses grow in Europe and also eventually overseas as well. So local European companies are going to help establish an international trading system. Now, there's going to be some new methods of business. So new ways of creating wealth were discovered by these European entrepreneurs. For example, bookkeeping methods from the Arabs and the use of banks from the late Middle Ages allowed businesses to achieve loans, just like businesses get loans today to open a restaurant or a store. We'll begin to see many of these businesses get loans from banks themselves to start their own businesses. We also see the rise of joint stock companies growing in importance. So what a joint stock company is people gathering large amounts of capital, such as money and resources, together and pooling it together to expand a business overseas, especially in like the colonies. This is how many of the colonies got started as well. Now, investors would only lose the amount of money they put into the joint company if the venture failed. Not all their whole money. They would only lose what they put in. So this makes people feel better, and it allows for people to kind of grow and expand their businesses. This picture down here is a picture of an Italian joint stock company. So bypassing guilds. Another way that businesses and companies expanded was by bypassing guilds. Guilds were these small little organizations, and they were typically run by guild masters who ran small companies and controlled the manufacturing of goods. However, these guilds lacked the capital to support large businesses, so entrepreneurs and businesses decided to give raw materials, for example, such as cotton, to peasants to make the products. They would then buy the product from the peasants and sell it for a profit, and this is known as the putting out system, or the cottage systems, as many peasants were working out of their cottages, and it helped lead eventually to the Industrial Revolution, which we'll talk about later on. Here's a picture here of a woman working in a cottage. It kind of gives you an example of how this kind of worked. So our closure. How did trade and commerce grow around the world? Think about the trade with the Columbian Exchange. Think about how that impacted Europe financially and allowed for businesses and entrepreneurs to make profits with such things such as joint stock companies and elsewhere. And that will help you answer your questions for today. I hope you have a great rest of your day or night, and I hope to talk to you all soon. Take care. Bye-bye.